The moment Jack Sullivan opened his front door to find Mia standing there with her suitcases, he knew he'd made the biggest mistake of his life. Not because of her size, though at nearly 300 pounds, she was exactly as his friend Derek had described, but because of the look in his 8-year-old daughter Emma's eyes. Pure betrayal. How could he explain that their new housemate was here because Daddy had lost a drunken poker bet? If you're wondering how this disaster turned into the miracle that saved us all, stay with me until the end. And if this story touches your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to see more real stories that prove second chances come in all shapes and sizes. 3 months earlier, Jack had been drowning. Between raising Emma alone since his wife's death 2 years ago and keeping his small construction business afloat, he barely remembered what it felt like to breathe. His days blurred together in an endless cycle of school drop-offs, client meetings, frozen dinners, and falling asleep on the couch with paperwork scattered across his lap. The walls of their once happy home seemed to close in a little more each day, filled with memories of Sarah that neither he nor Emma knew how to process. That poker night was his first social outing in months, practically forced on him by colleagues worried about his isolation, and when Derek suggested raising the stakes, "If you lose, my cousin Mia stays with you for 6 months while she finishes her degree," Jack had laughed it off. For beers and a terrible hand later, it wasn't funny anymore. "Dad, you promised no strangers," Emma whispered as Mia awkwardly shifted her weight in their doorway, rain beginning to fall behind her. The little girl's fingers clutched her favorite stuffed rabbit, the last birthday gift from her mother, so tightly that her knuckles turned white. "Mom said family first." Jack's throat tightened as guilt and grief collided inside him. Emma was right. Sarah had always protected their family space, creating boundaries that kept their home a sanctuary. Now he'd invited a stranger into that sanctuary because of a stupid bet he couldn't even remember making clearly. "Emma, please show Mia to the guest room while I bring in her bags," he managed, avoiding his daughter's accusing stare. That first week was excruciating. Emma refused to speak at dinner, answering only in shrugs and eye rolls, retreating to her room immediately after eating the bare minimum. Jack worked late to avoid the uncomfortable silences, telling himself he needed the extra income but knowing he was really just running away from the mess he'd created. And Mia, well, Mia seemed to shrink despite her size, making herself as invisible as possible, eating alone in her room and leaving for her classes before anyone woke up. The few times Jack passed her in the hallway, he noticed how she pressed herself against the wall, as if trying to take up less space, her eyes downcast and apologetic. The house felt colder somehow, despite the extra person. The tension was palpable, hanging in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. Jack found himself wondering if he could just pay Derek to take Mia back, to release him from this awkward arrangement that was clearly making everyone miserable. But something stopped him, perhaps the memory of his father's voice reminding him that Sullivans always honored their commitments, no matter how foolish. It was the broken pipe that changed everything. After a particularly grueling day at a construction site, Jack came home to find water flooding his kitchen and Mia on her hands and knees, somehow having managed to shut off the main water valve and was now sopping up water with every towel in the house. Her clothes were soaked through, her hair plastered to her flushed face, but she worked with a determined efficiency that caught him off guard. "I called 3 plumbers," she said without looking up, wringing out a towel into a bucket. "They're all booked until tomorrow, but I found a YouTube tutorial and bought supplies to fix it temporarily. The hardware store guy said it should hold until a professional can look at it. I used my own money," she added quickly, as if afraid he'd think she was taking advantage. Jack stood speechless as she efficiently worked, explaining the physics of water pressure to a suddenly curious Emma, who had emerged from her bedroom at the commotion. He watched as his daughter, who hadn't spoken more than 10 words in a week, gradually inched closer to Mia, eventually kneeling down to help with the cleanup. By midnight, the 3 of them were eating ice cream on the kitchen floor, surrounded by damp towels and laughing about their great flood adventure. It was the first time Jack had heard Emma's genuine laugh since Sarah died. The walls between them didn't come down all at once after that, but cracks had formed. Small moments began to accumulate like treasures, Mia teaching Emma how to make pancakes shaped like animals on Saturday mornings, Jack discovering Mia's extensive collection of mystery novels that matched his own literary tastes, Emma asking Mia for help with her science homework instead of waiting for Jack to figure it out. The house began to breathe again, to expand with possibility rather than contract with grief. Jack discovered that Mia was studying nutritional science, specializing in childhood development, with a particular focus on how food affects emotional well-being in kids who've experienced trauma. Her research wasn't just academic, it was deeply personal, born from her own struggles. Emma discovered that Mia could braid hair better than anyone at school, creating intricate styles that made the little girl feel special on days when she missed her mother most acutely. And Mia discovered a family still healing from wounds that matched her own, a place where her knowledge and compassion could serve a purpose beyond academic achievement. "My parents died in a car accident when I was 15, she told Jack one night after Emma had gone to bed. They sat on the back porch, watching fireflies dance in the yard, a comfortable silence between them that had become their nightly ritual. Food became my comfort, my friend, my shield. The more people commented on my weight, the more I ate to cope with their judgment. By the time Derek took me in, I was already the fat girl, with all the baggage that comes with it." Jack recognized the pain in her eyes, the same he saw in his mirror every morning. The pain of someone who'd had their foundation ripped away, leaving them to rebuild on shifting sand. "Emma has nightmares," he confessed, staring into his coffee cup. "She screams for Sarah, and when I come instead, I see the disappointment in her eyes. I don't know how to help her. I don't know how to be both parents." "You don't have to be," Mia said softly, her hand hesitantly covering his for just a moment before retreating. "You just have to be her dad. That's enough, Jack. You're enough." Those words unlocked something in him, permission to stop trying to fill Sarah's shoes and instead focus on being the best father he could be. The next day, he left work early for the first time in months to attend Emma's soccer practice, something he'd always left to Sarah. Seeing his daughter's face light up when she spotted him on the sidelines was worth every project deadline he'd have to scramble to meet later. When Emma's teacher called about her struggling grades, it was Mia who suggested a homework routine that turned into nightly family study sessions at the dining table. She introduced a reward system that celebrated effort over perfection, helping Emma rebuild her confidence one assignment at a time. When Jack's biggest client threatened to pull out of a contract due to delays, it was Mia who stayed up all night helping him revise his proposal, bringing a fresh perspective that ultimately saved the deal. And when Emma came home crying because classmates had called her new friend, the whale, it was Jack who sat both girls down and talked about worth that goes beyond appearance, surprising himself with wisdom he didn't know he possessed. 4 months into their arrangement, Jack realized with a start that his house had become a home again. The refrigerator displayed Emma's improving math tests alongside meal plans Mia had designed to boost brain function and mood. The living room echoed with movie night laughter and heated debates about book endings. And the dining table had become command central for everything from science projects to business plans to Mia's increasingly successful food blog about nutritious cooking for busy families. The changes weren't just emotional. Jack noticed that the constant knot in his shoulders had loosened. Emma's nightmares had decreased from nightly occurrences to rare events. And Mia, who had once tried to disappear into the background, now moved through their home with growing confidence, her laugh no longer muffled behind her hand. She'd even started joining them on weekend hikes, despite struggling with the steeper trails, her determination inspiring both Sullivans to push through their own limitations. "Why do you look at Mia like that?" Emma asked one Saturday morning while they were grocery shopping, Mia having stayed home to work on a major research paper. "Like what?" Jack felt his face flush as he pretended to study the nutrition label on a cereal box. "Like you used to look at Mom in the old videos. All soft and mushy," Emma said with the brutal honesty only children possess. "It's okay, you know. Mom told me before she got really sick that she wanted us to be happy again someday." The realization hit him with the force of a wrecking ball. Somewhere between late-night kitchen conversations and weekend hikes where Mia pushed herself despite struggling to keep up, he'd fallen in love with her determination, her kindness, her laugh that started as a giggle and ended as a snort. He loved the way she cut Emma's sandwiches into stars, the furrow between her brows when she concentrated, and how she always saved the comics section of the newspaper for him because she knew it was his favorite. But most of all, he loved how she never tried to replace Sarah in their lives. Instead, she had created her own essential place in their family tapestry. But the bet was almost up. Mia would graduate in 2 weeks and move across the country for a research position she'd been offered months ago. The thought left him hollow, like the house after Sarah died, but somehow worse because this time the emptiness would be a choice, not an inevitability. The night before her graduation, Jack found Mia packing in her room, tears streaming down her face as she carefully folded the sweater Emma had picked out for her birthday. Her suitcases lay open on the bed, already half filled with books and clothes, physical evidence of her impending departure that made his chest ache. "I never thanked Derek for losing that poker game on purpose," she whispered when he asked what was wrong, her voice catching on the words. "What?" Jack leaned against the doorframe, confusion momentarily overriding his sadness. "There was no bet, Jack. Derek knew I needed a place to stay when my apartment building was sold for condos. He knew I was too proud to ask for help, especially from strangers. And he knew you were too kind to turn away someone in need if he framed it as an obligation. He told me the truth after the flood incident, when I called to ask if I should just leave since things were so tense." Jack sat heavily on the edge of her bed, mind reeling as he reassessed the past 6 months. "So this whole time, I've been the charity case you never asked for," she finished, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "And now I don't know how to leave the first place that's felt like home since my parents died. But I can't stay where I'm not wanted, where I only exist because of a lie." "Then don't," Emma said from the doorway, clutching her stuffed rabbit just as she had the day Mia arrived. But this time, instead of fear and resentment, her expression held determination beyond her years. "Dad's happier with you here. I'm happier. And you make the best pancakes. Mom would like you, I think. She always said people should be where they're loved." That night changed everything. Not because a single dad and an obese girl fell in love, though they did, eventually, after months of careful conversations and considerate boundaries, but because 3 broken people realized family isn't always what you're born into. Sometimes it's what you build after everything falls apart, a mosaic of imperfect pieces that somehow creates something beautiful when placed together. Mia did take the research position, but only for 6 months, commuting back on weekends and holidays. Jack and Emma used that time to renovate the house, creating a proper office for Mia's work and expanding the kitchen for her culinary experiments. When she returned permanently, it was to a home designed with her in mind and to a small, private wedding ceremony in the backyard where they'd first shared their deepest wounds. 6 years later, their YouTube channel, Sullivan Family Kitchen, has 3 million subscribers who tune in to watch Mia's nutritional science in action, Emma's teenage cooking experiments, and Jack's hopeless but enthusiastic attempts to master baking. What started as Mia's simple blog documenting their family meals has evolved into a platform that combines food science, grief recovery, and blended family dynamics. Viewers from around the world comment about how the Sullivans' authenticity has inspired them to heal their own family relationships or make peace with their bodies. Mia has lost over 100 pounds through the healthy lifestyle changes she now teaches others, but as she always tells their viewers, "The weight I lost doesn't compare to what I gained, a family who loved me at my heaviest and supports me at my strongest." Her doctoral research on nutritional approaches to childhood trauma has been published in leading journals, and she divides her time between teaching at the local university and managing their growing online community. Emma, now 14, has blossomed from the withdrawn child of their early days into a confident teenager who leads anti-bullying initiatives at her school. She introduces Mia as her mom without hesitation, though she keeps a special memory box of Sarah that the 3 of them add to on her birthday each year. The stuffed rabbit still sits on her shelf, but it's joined now by trophies from cooking competitions and science fairs that Mia has coached her through. And Jack, well, Jack has learned that hearts don't have limited capacity. Loving Mia didn't diminish his love for Sarah. Instead, it honored the life they'd shared by continuing to live fully. His construction business has evolved to specialize in accessible home modifications, inspired by watching Mia struggle with standard kitchen counters and bathroom fixtures designed for smaller bodies. Their own home has become a showcase for how thoughtful design can accommodate all body types with dignity. So if you're watching this and feeling alone, remember that family can find you in the most unexpected ways. Sometimes it takes losing a bet to win what you never knew you needed. Sometimes the person who seems like an inconvenience becomes your greatest blessing. And sometimes the heaviest burdens, grief, self-doubt, shame, become lighter when shared with the right people. Like, subscribe, and join us next week when Emma reveals the healthy graduation cake that's become our most requested recipe ever. As Mia always says, food brings people together, but love keeps them there. Because the biggest changes in life don't happen when we transform ourselves, they happen when we open our doors to the possibility that someone else might transform us instead. In a world that often judges by appearance, the Sullivan family stands as testimony that the most beautiful transformations happen on the inside, where healing begins and where love takes root in the most unexpected soil.